fires will burn it down, although I would not suggest that, as it's such an amazing and large structure. If this is anywhere near your base or the spawn point of the world, this could be a great thing to turn into a base, or maybe renovate it into a base. You can just have it as a side sort of outpost on your way to a certain area. I would definitely suggest converting this into something, as it's just such a massive structure, certainly the largest single building structure in the game, and also because it's fully spawn-proofed, it would be also safe from that point on. So that's how you rate a Woodland Mansion in 1.19. Hope you enjoy, and good luck not getting killed by the Vindicators.
Big rankings like this, I rank out the levels in sections, in this case ranking the levels within the games themselves before combining them into one list. I still have 3 more games to go through. Nintendo, please just release Mario Land on Game Boy Online, it's not that hard. But one thing has remained consistent among almost all of the games. The bottom of the list contains nearly every underwater level. These are without question some of the most hated levels in the Mario franchise, and I can't help but agree. They just aren't that fun to play, especially compared to the standard on land levels. Now that's just the 2D games. What about the 3D ones? Yeah, they suck too. Let's just take Mario 64 for example. Jolly Roger Bay and Dire Dire Docks are probably my least favorite stages beside Rainbow Ride. Almost every single Mario game, 2D or 3D, has the water stages among the worst in the game, but not all of them. I believe that one game nailed making a water level so hard that not only is it good, but it can reasonably stand as one of the best levels in the series. That game would of course be Super Mario Odyssey with the Seaside Kingdom. Welcome to another episode of Level by Level. In today's episode, I want to take a look at what makes Bubblaine so good, because I'm far from the only person to have the opinion that it's phenomenal. To do that, just like my other Odyssey level by levels, we'll be separating this into sections. This time around though, the sections will be slightly different. We'll start with the aesthetic as always, but then we'll talk about the controls, since that's a very important aspect of why this kingdom works. Following that, we'll go back to the standard structure, being layout, story, and then ending on some notable moves. So with that said, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. As I said, at 200k, I'm ranking every 2D Mario level, and let's jump right into Seaside Kingdom's aesthetic. Mario Odyssey is known for its very unique kingdom themes. While many of them do have some similarities to themes that came before, each kingdom takes their own unique spin on it. Instead of being a standard forest, Wooded Kingdom is combined with a lot of orange technology and a deep woods. Instead of being a standard lava world, Luncheon Kingdom replaces the entire landscape with very colorful and polygonal food. You could do this for almost every kingdom in the game, but funnily enough, our topic for today might just be one of the least changed. Now, it does pretend to have a special gimmick like, actually the cliff bases are textured like the cork of a bottle, but let's be real, this is just a beach. And just because it is a lot simpler thematically than many of the other stages in this game, that doesn't make its aesthetic bad. In fact, I would argue far from it. Upon completing this kingdom story, the look and vibe of the Seaside Kingdom is one of the most beautiful and relaxing in the entire Mario franchise. Personally, I've always been a big fan of how beaches look anyway, but the main part about this kingdom that really sells it has to be the setting sun. It makes this skybox and kingdom as a whole just a joy to look at. The added colors from the rainbow really enhance this as well. But what I think fully completes this level's signature above ground look are the 4 streams of water flowing upward into the large glass in the center. It just gives this kingdom a majestic look that I think surpasses almost everything else in the series. Every aspect of this level's surface, from the sand, the water, and the sunset, make this one of my favorite kingdoms to look at, even with its arguably less creative theme. And speaking of theme, how could I possibly forget the song here? Bubblaine is by far the best beach theme we've gotten in the series. It's not even close. It nails the relaxing beach vacation vibes so perfectly. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that they perfected the Mario Beach with this level surface. But that's not all we have to cover here. The interesting part about underwater level aesthetics in Mario games is that there are 2 things you have to analyze: the surface and actually below the water itself. While I definitely prefer the relaxing vibes on this level surface, the underwater look is no slouch either. Dipping below lets us see a beautiful light blue landscape. Due to just how clear the water is, we can actually see this from the surface too, which also means that we can see the surface from below. I love being able to get such clear views of both from anywhere. I think it boosts the aesthetic even more. As you go deeper into the water, the blues start to get darker and darker, with the trench housing the Sphinx. Don't ask where there's a Sphinx here. With the trench housing the Sphinx being significantly darker than the surface. There's also plenty of plant life that populates the sand here. Not quite sure what these blue platform things are called, but I love their look. The way they shine here makes the ground of the ocean stand out. Add on the shimmering seaweed and coral, and they nail the look of the ocean floor. I also love how colorful the seaweed enemies are, because they make this place so much fun to look at. All of the creatures that populate Bubblaine give it so much life. On the surface, you have the Bubblanians and 2 different Dory. I really love the Dory here for quite a few reasons, but for just the aesthetic, them being yellow and purple is great, and I love how they constantly move around the whole kingdom, making it change as you play more. Under the water, there's the seaweed enemies along with some Cheep Cheep. Even making a return appearance to haunt the dreams of young children, we have the Unagi Eel. I also have to say I love the aesthetic of the tunnel they're used in. It's a perfect dark contrast to the bright and bubbly surface. I think I could go on praising the aesthetic for this kingdom all day, but but I think I'll just call it here and just say they perfected the relaxing beach aesthetic. While by itself, I wouldn't say that's quite enough to make this the best water stage in Mario history, it sure does help quite a bit. But now I want to focus on controls, because I think this plays a major part in what makes the water levels in Odyssey so fantastic. Now I say plural because the beginning part of this section could also apply to Lake Kingdom, which isn't this video's focus, but I thought I should bring it up anyway. The controls are the primary reason the water levels in previous Mario games failed so hard. In both 2D and 3D, moving in water was just simply really slow. I mean, that makes sense, it's probably pretty realistic that you go slow, but realism doesn't exactly equal fun. I mean, which Kirby here looks more fun? This one looks like it's gonna kill your entire family. The best show of the differences in underwater control, I think comparing it to Mario 64 is pretty fair. In that game, you basically have two things you can do underwater: swim forward and punch. That's it. The swimming can be extremely tedious. If you're going in a straight line, it isn't the worst thing, but having to make any sort of turn can be rough. Mario takes forever to look at the direction you want underwater, and it can make playing through Dire Dire Docks and Jolly Roger Bay a massive pain. But now let's compare this to Odyssey. The water controls here are greatly expanded upon, and also just straight up changed quite a bit. Mario 64 has the player always swim in the direction they're facing, and if they aren't swimming, they'll stay in place. Mario Odyssey, on the other hand, has the player constantly going downward, and by pressing the jump button, you can swim upward a little. That's more similar to how the 2D Mario games approach movement.
That's fine.
But that's not all. Mario also has three other things he can do here that significantly improve the controls. First off is the cap throw. While Mario does turn faster here than in Mario 64, it's still a bit slow. However, by throwing Cappy, Mario instantly snaps in the direction the player is pointing. This is especially helpful when combined with their next move, the underwater dive. By inputting ground pound and Y at the same time, Mario will lunge in the direction he's facing. This makes movement significantly faster, and getting a nice rhythm down feels so much more fun here than in Mario 64. On top of that, Mario can also just ground pound underwater, which makes descending extremely quick as well. These three movement techniques combined to make underwater travel here so much more satisfying. Of course, it still doesn't feel as great as land movement, especially in Mario Odyssey's case, as I think it has the best movement of any game I've ever played, but it's certainly not unfun to go through either. These are easily the best water controls we've seen in the Mario franchise, and luckily they seem to be adapting this partially to the 2D games as well. Mario Wonder is pretty much the only 2D Mario game with good underwater levels because of its Dolphin King badge, which is basically a 2D version of Mario's underwater dive. So it's safe to say that Mario's new controls here play a big part in why so many people like not only Seaside, but Lake Kingdom as well. But notice how I said Mario's controls, as there's even more to talk about here. Ever since Super Mario Bros. 3, the 2D Mario games have been adding power-ups to help with underwater movement. Most notably are the Frog Suit and Penguin Suit, which both make water movement a bit more tolerable, though I'd argue still kind of weak. Mario Odyssey doesn't have any power-ups, but what it has instead might just be even better. Odyssey's main mechanic is of course the ability to capture enemies to control them. This changes Mario's moveset completely.
I saw in the creative inventory that you can make arrows on a rope.
In both Seaside Kingdom and Lake, you'll find plenty of cheap Jeeps. By throwing Cappy at them, you'll be able to become a fish. Underwater, this guy controls fairly differently from Mario. It'll stay in place if nothing is pressed and will rise with the B button and lower Y. If both are pressed at the same time, you'll get a boost in the direction you're facing. Shaking your controller also lets you attack nearby enemies and activate things. This makes general movement in water even better, and I think it's another major reason that swimming in this game feels so fantastic. It's also worth noting that in the Cheep Cheep capture, Mario can no longer drown, which makes it even more helpful. Now, everything I said in this section so far applies to both Seaside and Lake Kingdom. However, there's one more control aspect I want to mention that really only applies to Seaside: surface water movement. In many Mario games, there will be levels that are both surface and water stages. For me, I mostly try to stay above the water, but sometimes you just have to swim for a brief moment to get where you want to go. This can occasionally feel like the level is screeching to a bit of a halt as you slowly have to swim over. Seaside Kingdom has a lot of water between its separate islands, which means swimming between them is an important concern. Well, luckily for us, there are two things in Seaside Kingdom to help us traverse the water surface without slowing down. First are the rocket bumpers, which aren't exclusive to this kingdom, but Blaine might just use them the best. Pretty much every island has a few, and by collecting them, you can run on the water surface, saving you from having to swim. But the star of the show is of course Seaside Kingdom's main capture, the Gushing. This guy is one of my favorite captures in the game, scoring third on my Mario Odyssey capture ranking. That's not a small feat, so what exactly does this guy do that's so good? Essentially, you can use its water to propel yourself upward and horizontally at rapid speeds. This is best used when touching the water surface, since if you're not touching water, you'll slowly dry out and need to get a refill. Moving around with this guy is an absolute blast. It may seem simple, but it's truly the kingdom's main highlight. Almost everything on the surface is built around it, and it's got some of the best moons of the kingdom to its name. To fully express why I think the Gushing works so well, though, I think it's about time we move on to the kingdom's layout. First, we should establish just how big this kingdom is. There are three different sizes an Odyssey kingdom can be: large, medium, and small. You can tell which size kingdom you're dealing with just based on the amount of purple coins. Large kingdoms have 100 purple coins, mediums have 50, and small ones have none. The Seaside Kingdom has a grand total of 100 purple coins, meaning it's one of the game's large kingdoms. In my opinion, the large kingdoms are generally the best because they have the most content. In In comparison, Lake is just a medium-sized kingdom, and while it still has plenty of its own content, I think Bablane's size plays a large part in it being seen as the best of the two. But with this size out of the way, how is the kingdom actually put together? Like we talked about in the aesthetic section, there are basically two separate areas that work together to make the kingdom what it is. That, of course, being the land and the sea. When you first arrive in the kingdom, you'll of course be on the beach, but it's worth noting that you're in the bottom middle. That pretty much gives you an immediate choice. You can either go left or right if you want to stay on land, or dip right into the water. I think this is done because Seaside Kingdom is meant to be one of the least linear kingdoms in the game. Yes, Mario Odyssey is a non-linear game, but many of its kingdoms still have pretty defined pathways to follow. For example, let's take a look at the subject of our last episode on Odyssey, the Lost Kingdom. The kingdom has you start at the bottom, and you have to make your way to the top of the mountain, with several optional areas being built off that path to explore. In Bublane, though, there's not really one direction you're meant to go in. Sure, it's still got its own centerpiece, the tall glass bottle, but getting there is not really the main objective of the kingdom. In my opinion, to fit with its relaxing theme, it's not really supposed to have a big destination. In Seaside, you can take it pretty easy by just running around wherever you like, and I think that works extremely well here. The openness works to make this kingdom feel much more freeing. In order to entice players to explore here, the several islands you can find in the kingdom each have their own separate highlights. You start on a pretty open beach area, but by going to the left, you can travel to a mini resort. This is where you'll find a majority of the kingdom's citizens, and after you beat the game, a lot of other people will be taking a vacation here too. The next island is separated by water, but lucky for us, the resort has a ton of rocket flowers that we can use to cross this gap quickly. This area gives us a tall lighthouse that we can use to look down on the rest of the kingdom. To get up there, you can either go down this water tunnel or climb a pole after completing the story. The backside of the kingdom has a ton of mini islands that hold rocket flowers. Take us to the next major highlight, Hot Spring Island. This gives us a relaxing grassy area with its titular hot spring right in the middle. This area will also contain a lot of citizens trying to relax. And the corpse of a robot, don't worry about that. Then we make our way back around to the start, which gives us a space to climb around the cliffs of the kingdom. Then we can end on the center glass bottle. This not only gives the kingdom a beautiful set piece to look at, but is also its own little area we can run around on. We can even take these streams of water after the story to reach the top of the glass, giving us easily the best look of the kingdom. Each one of these areas gives the player a unique reason to want to visit. This variety keeps the exploration fresh throughout. But of course, I've only mentioned the land so far. There's a whole other part of this level. If we decide to go straight into the water from the start, we'll be able to find plenty of things to do here as well. Under the water, you'll first encounter a pathway that goes in a circle around pretty much the whole area, and following it allows you to see many places this undersea section has. There are plenty of power moves to collect while you travel, but I think the main reason I like this underwater section so much is because of all the hidden power. Inside the various walls, you'll find many nooks and crannies you can squeeze into, many of which containing moons. I think this was a perfect way to handle underwater exploration, as it makes it feel like you're a diver constantly discovering new things on your journey. These cracks that you travel through can be found anywhere from the walls of the islands we saw before to even below the seafloor. It really makes the player take a close look at their surroundings here, as despite how deep water is, the cracks can sometimes be quite difficult to spot. One other thing I like about this water section is how the further back in the kingdom you go, the deeper the water gets. You start in very shallow waters, but by the time you go through this tunnel underneath the glass, it's significantly deeper. Then when you go past the ceiling populated by seaweeds, you find a massive trench that goes way deeper than anything else here. This is the place you can find the Sphinx, along with another crack in the wall for a moon. The changes in depths and the hidden pathways in the water give it a lot of variety, just like the land. That means you can switch between swimming or walking at any point to find something new. I think the ability to switch between these two forms of travel at basically any time makes this kingdom even better. At pretty much any point underwater, you're right next to an island, so if you get bored of swimming, you can resurface and see where it took you. These two aspects of the kingdom blend perfectly together to not only give a variety of places to explore, but a variety of ways to explore them. That's why I think the captures are so important here, along with Mario's movement. They keep both areas fresh to explore without any of them taking up too much time. With Seaside being large as well, both the underwater and surface areas have plenty of content to make them feel complete. But with that out of the way, how does the kingdom use its layout to its advantage in the story? The structure for Seaside Kingdom story is quite unique when compared to the others. Normally you'll have one moon after another in a specific order, but this time you can actually collect the first 4 moons in any order you want. When you first arrive, you'll find the kingdom's boss, drinking water out of the big central glass. In order to get him down, Mario needs to unplug the 4 water geysers, which fires a cork right into his head. Each of these corks have a corresponding moon, which you can get in any order you like. They're placed in the 4 separate corners of the map, and I think they do a fantastic job of showing what this kingdom is all about and perfectly build up to this boss fight. Let's start with the Stone Pillar seal, since it's definitely the easiest and the one that's most clearly a start. The Stone Pillar is located in very deep water, but Mario isn't quite able to climb up it. Luckily, directly next to the pillar, we have the kingdom's first Gushin, meaning this moon acts as a perfect introduction to the character. By using the Gushin, we can spray upward and reach this little ledge, but that's still not quite enough to reach the moon. This is meant to actually teach us another mechanic of the Gushin. It can only gain so much height before the game stops you from going higher, but if the Gushin lands on something, then that height limit is reset, allowing the player to go even higher. This is an incredibly important mechanic for many moons we'll see later, and I think it's taught here pretty effortlessly. Upon collecting the moon, you'll be able to ground pound the switch to launch out the core, which I like the addition of because spin pounding on them is really fun. On to the next moon, we have the Lighthouse Seal. Remember though, this is just my personal order since you could get these 4 in any order you like. There are 2 main ways you can get this moon, both of which show off a different aspect of the kingdom. We'll start with the more obvious method before getting into the secret one. From the ground level, there's no way to get up to the top of the lighthouse. While it may seem hopeless at first, there's luckily a hole that goes down into the water. This brings you into a tunnel system that will eventually lead you up to the top. This acts as a good way to incorporate some underwater into the story, since most of the time here you'll be on the surface. Right when you enter into the hole, you'll be given the option to capture a Cheep Cheep, which I'm sure most people will take so they don't have to worry about air. With their new Cheep Cheep, we venture deep into the dark cavern. Yeah, this is the main place where you'll find the Unagi eels, and I absolutely love them. They come jutting out of the walls, floor, and ceiling, making this dark tunnel a really intense place to swim. Once you reach the end of the tunnel, you'll be able to take a warp pipe that brings you up to the seal. Remember though, I did say there was a secret method. If you took the lesson of Gushin's being able to fly higher than hard, then you may realize that you can take the Gushin you use for the Stone Seal Moon and just barely have enough water to reach the lighthouse. Happy even has a secret line of dialogue congratulating you on this shortcut. I really like having the option to do both methods. It makes repeat playthroughs more fun. Alright, 2 more seals to go. Next up is the Hot Spring Seal. For this, the island took its name a little bit too literally and has the spring completely covered in lava. Yeah, unfortunately, though, the loot we need is located under the water, so how exactly are we going to get it? Well, this is where our great pal the Gushins come in to save the day again. By using the water they spray in, we'll be able to clear the lava. Not only is this fun, but it shows how the Gushins can be used outside of just giving the player a boost of momentum. This will become even more important later on in the story, too. The final seal is the seal above the canyon. This one is actually pretty separated from the rest of the kingdom, as it takes place inside the cliffs near the Odyssey. I do quite like climbing up this, though, as you have to run past these rolling obstacles to reach the top. Compared to the rest, it's definitely the most simple and probably the least necessary, but I still like it because it gives us a reason to explore every corner. But after activating the final cork, we are brought into the kingdom's main event, the boss fight against Morph. This is one of the most unique boss fights in the Mario series. Every other fight in this game takes place within a contained arena, which makes sense because generally the goal is to keep the player and the boss close. This, however, is not the case in Seaside, because the boss fight takes place in the entire kingdom. Moleskine and Swear will jump down to the sea floor and just start shooting things at you. He acts as the final test of everything the 4 story moons have collected so far has been building up to. This taking place over the entire kingdom fits that idea, since obviously we've grown more acquainted with it after having to travel between each of its 4 corners. But now that we know where this fight is taking place, how do we actually kill this guy? Well, right in front of us, we get a pretty clear clue. The Gushin. 2 of the seal moons are solely focused on it, which acted as our training. This is most clearly shown by the fact that Moleskine Square's head is covered in lava, and since you cleared lava in the hot spring moon, it gets the player to spray water on his head and they're trying to kill him. This story was such a brilliant way to introduce how to use the Gushin, what it can do, and then how we can apply that to a final challenge. As you hit him more and more, you way throughout the kingdom, so you have to chase him down with the Gushin's high speed. They'll also throw projectiles at you that you need to avoid, which technically come through the seal above the canyon if you want to draw another connection. Now, to be honest, of Odyssey's boss fights, this is far from being my all-time favorite, but I still think it's well above the standard of Mario bosses. Once you finally land the finishing blow, Moleskine Square will have his mind blown.
I don't want to
This puts
explore
Mario
a
capping
cave,
the multi-moon
honestly.
at the top of the glass, finally allowing Mario to finish off the story.
I think
just
my
really
best
love how
strategy,
naturally
I should just start going for diamonds now.
here. It was fantastically designed and certainly helped make this kingdom all
Apparently,
better. But
why
outside of just the story,
negative
we of course have
50
plenty of
is
other moons
the
that
money
pop up in this
game.
area. So why don't we take a look at some of the highlights?
So,
Just like the last few Mario Odyssey level by level episodes, I'll be able to pretty easily determine the moons worth highlighting since I already ranked them all for my Mario.
here
If
we
you want to
go.
hear me talk about literally all 71 moons this kingdom has to offer, then make sure to check that video out. This section will as always be a bit all over the place, but I think it's worth showing off what content this area contains. The first moon I want to focus on is Ride the Jet Stream. This is pretty much directly next to the Odyssey inside this little cutout of the wall. Normally this is a pretty simple grab, as you could just take a Gushin, climb up this cliff, and then grab it. But what if you didn't know what a Gushin was? Well, there's no need to worry, because you can also simply collect this moon as Mario. The jumps can be a bit tight, but that's what makes successfully climbing up here and collecting the moon all the better. This is how I collected the moon the first time I came here, and it's what I do whenever I come back. It's just such a fun little mini-challenge. Why don't we jump into the water for a few 2D moons? Ocean Bottom Maze Treasure has a really cool concept behind it that makes it stand out as one of my favorite 2D moons. On the surface, you have the option of going down 4 different pipes, and you have to figure out which pipes you can use to reach the moon in the center. It's not too difficult, but it's a pretty solid puzzle. After hitting the moon rock, there are even a few more moons you can collect in here. My favorite part about this section, though, is just how it looks. The camera actually goes above the water surface, so we get to see our gameplay behind the water, which gives us a really unique feel. The other 2D moon I wanted to mention was Seaside Kingdom Timer Challenge 1, which actually ended up being my favorite timer challenge in the entire game. First off, the area to get to it is hidden extremely well, being put underneath this very sneaky crack in the ground. Once you get inside, you have to hit a ground pound switch and quickly swim into the 2D section. While the platforming inside the 2D area is fairly simplistic, the timer is very strict, making this a pretty good challenge. You know what? We've had too much positivity. What was the worst moon in Seaside? Beach Volleyball, Hero of the Beach, is one of the most tedious moons to get in the entire game. I do really love the idea of having a volleyball minigame. It fits the theme of Seaside perfectly and is unique to only this kingdom, but it takes so long. To get the final moon, you have to hit the ball back 100 times in a row. Unfortunately, the ball takes so long to bounce between the sides at first, making each attempt feel like a drag. Yes, you can speed it up by throwing Cappy in just the right way, but that's a bit risky to do. Eventually, though, the ball speed gets so fast that it can be incredibly hard to keep up with, making this both frustrating and difficult. Every time I replay the game, this moon is the one I dread the most. It's not my least favorite moon, but it's definitely Seaside's lowest point. But hey, this kingdom still has plenty of other highlights. In fact, there are many moons that are found throughout several different kingdoms that I feel Seaside does the best. My favorite hint art moon in the game comes from here, being this painting that says Keep. It's an incredibly cryptic clue, however you may be able to determine that it's somewhere in Metro, and wouldn't you believe it, one of the roads says Keep on it. This is definitely a pretty challenging and cryptic puzzle, but I think that's what the hint art should strive to be. I think Seaside also has easily the best shopping moon. Yeah, it's not like it's a stat competition, but putting their store on the back of a dory is such a great idea. It's the only store to move around in the kingdom, which by itself makes this a highlight. At the Purple Dory, you can also purchase the resort outfit that lets you get into the costume room. What I love about this moon is the fact that Mario does a little dance when he gets inside that's entirely unique to this one room. I think I like the one in Sand Kingdom just a smidge more since he gets a guitar, but I love both regardless. I think the moon type Seaside Kingdom nailed the hardest when compared to all the other kingdoms, though, is the painting moon. Normally for these, you have to find a painting in a different kingdom and go inside of it to reach a previously unreachable spot. If you take the painting to Seaside Kingdom, it'll put you up on this really high ledge. So far, nothing special, but there's a good reason I like this one so much. Unlike every other Secret Path painting moon, this is really the only one you can reach without needing the painting, excluding glitches and a really, really hard jump. Yeah, you can actually reach quite a few of these, but this is easily the most satisfying one to do. You may be confused on how we would even get up there, but if you remember back in the story, I mentioned that we gradually gain height with the Gushin by landing on higher and higher platforms. So essentially, this moon is now one giant kingdom-wide puzzle to figure out how to gain enough height. It's extremely fun gradually going higher and higher with the Gushin. But what about the water, you might be asking? Well, you can actually refill by just touching the streams of water that are going into the glass. So after going around the kingdom and gaining as much height as you can eventually fly over to this ledge and just barely reach it before the Gushin's water runs out. I know it's not the intended method, but I just have so much fun doing it like this. Ever since I figured out I could, I never went back to the painting or reading playthrough. Speaking of the Gushin, they got a pretty good obstacle course here located in a sub-area. You have to use its limited supply of water to fly between several platforms without it running out. This provides for a solid challenge, especially at the end where you have to avoid some poison. To get the Secret Moon in the sub-area, you have to preserve your water to make it across a big gap, which I think is a pretty fitting place for it. One last part I love about the sub-area, though, is the room where you collect the main moon. It's unlike any other sub-area in the game, being this massive room filled with shallow water and a small island containing the moon. I mean, gameplay-wise, it doesn't really do anything, but I just love looking at this place because of how excessively open and empty it is. The last few moons I wanted to mention are from two different sub-areas and were my 4 favorite moons in the kingdom. First is this sub-area that you only unlock after hitting the moon rock. It's this really fun challenge using the Pokio capture from Bowser's Kingdom where you have to try and hit the bombs into some blocks. I just love how this room is laid out, especially for the secondary moon as you launch a bomb across the wall to explode a box on the other side. But for my 2 favorite moons, we have Stretch on the Side Path and Hurry and Stretch, which are my 14th and 13th favorite moons respectively. This uses the up route from Wooded Kingdom as you have to rush to climb the sub-area. Lava is quickly rising behind you though, so making your way through can be extremely stressful, especially with the added moon snakes. The reason I love this area so much though is that none of the walls are tall enough to require the up route. You could totally just use Mario here, which yes is much more challenging, but in my opinion also much more fun. I think these absolutely deserve the title of the best moons in Seaside Kingdom. But yeah, that just about covers it. Seaside Kingdom was able to break away from the Mario underwater curse for a number of reasons. Mario's significantly better controls, the added captures to make underwater and above water travel more fun, the very open layout to make exploration exciting, the incredibly fun story that taught us all there is to know about the kingdom, and the large variety of fantastic moons. I have no trouble saying that this easily belongs as one of the game's very best kingdoms. I don't think it's quite as great as, say, Sand, Wooded, or Metro for me, but if this ends up being someone's favorite kingdom, I think that's completely understandable. So for me, I think this belongs as a very high A tier on the level-by-level Odyssey tier list. Anyways, that's it for this video. Is your favorite moon in the game pot hopping at the Glass Palace and you hate me for not mentioning it? Let me know in the comments. Before I end this episode, I want to mention that I did revamp the tier list a smidge from the last episode. The order's all the same, but I moved a few stuff down just because I know if I didn't, S tier would get very crowded. My opinions on the courses haven't lowered or anything, I just want the tiers to be a bit more clear without a ton just crowding up in one space. But yeah, I'm really happy to be back making videos on this series, and I hope you all look forward to videos on the remaining kingdoms. Anyways, Rybones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.
Ooh. The map's a bit cheesy. That's an Amethyst Geode. The map also means I don't have to worry about how I place my torches. I can always just look at the map. Wow, that's Deep Slate. This cave goes deep. What is that? Is that a fucking book? Is it gonna try to kill me? Oh my god! No, there's two of them now! Oh my god. The hell is this? It's in the water. Oh, it's actually underground. It's super pink. Maybe I should downscale the difficulty.
Hey everybody, I'm here at a casino. Now normally I wouldn't condone extreme gambling, but I may or may not have gotten a bunch of money from a check I worked very hard to get. So while I was here building up the courage to do all or nothing, I was thinking, hey, there's a ton of silly games out there that have cards and sometimes money involved, so let's talk about one. Uno. You know what an Uno is. It's been around for over 50 years. It's been played millions of times, and it's got some screwed up rules. I think Uno specifically is in this odd spot where nobody actually knows how to play it. Really, instead, it's based on what you feel like doing. Hell, I'd even say the classic and supposedly officialist official edition is a weird version. Like, you're supposed to have each player draw a card, and whoever has the highest number is supposed to deal. But then also, you're supposed to play it like you get more points based on how many cards everybody else has when you win a game. A simple game of Uno is supposed to have multiple rounds, but literally nobody cares enough to do that, because that really does, in fact, sound lame and boring and dumb and stupid, and nobody wants to do math when half of the people playing Uno I go against can't even count to 4. Why would I trust them with basic addition? This is really where the first branch off from Uno already begins to take place. People just do whatever they want with the rules. Sometimes it's fine and totally cool, but other times just ew. Thanks, lame, not good, very bad, crime, dying, don't call me, don't come to our house, we're done. Like my rules, for example, include stacking, +2s and +4s, draw until you play, and you have to play a Wilder +4 card if that's the only card you can play. That's it. Perfectly game, no balance issues, 1 stack setups, usually takes too long, amazing for a few rounds.
I died in
Sometimes
3
I'll
hits
dabble
from
with
that
7 or
guy.
0 swamp decks. What? If you're playing this game with like middle schoolers or even just incredibly weak-willed people, you get rules like draw 1 card. This is the most controversial rule in Uno in my opinion. It sucks, and I promise you, any and all games are significantly less fun with it. It's like a bad relationship, just let it go. The rule stuff extends further when you start considering other versions. At the time of speaking the words coming out of my mouth right now, there's 637 versions of the game that you can try, and that number is technically multiplied when you add the rule change. But we're not gonna, so get that out of here. No, when looking at the special editions, they'll have at minimum a few cards and at most entire decks worth of exclusive stuff. But generally, official Uno sequels or spin-offs will have at least one sort of dumb mechanic. And also, I started to realize how flawed Uno as a whole is when we take a look at Dosed, for example. This game sucks. I hate it. I highly discourage it. Instead of punishing your pals with an unholy amount of cards, you need to match cards in order to get the most amount of points. And as brought up from before, the reliance on a point system in Uno is quite literally fatherless behavior. Why would you do that to yourself? In fact, the higher the number gets, the further we stray from the Uno gods. Look at Quattro. That doesn't even have cards anymore. What's going to happen when we get to Uno 12, Uno Doce? At that point, it might just be 3-on-3 suburban basketball. Instead, play Uno Jenga or something. Uno Stacko is a result of crossbreeding. It's just Jenga, but you have to pull certain colors, and some blocks make the next person pull extra blocks. But again, for no reason, in like every single Uno game, there's at least one objectively stupid rule. The last person
This
who
is
pull a
exactly
block
what I
without the tower
wanted.
falling over is the winner, and I understand. Jenga
So why am I so unhappy?
Get in the eyes and tell me this is a good. This is a game where it's typically more competitively viable to sit between toddlers to increase your likelihood of winning. Your game has considerable flaws in its fundamentals. So then what happens when there's no toddlers in your local daycare? Like at Uno Dare, of course, there's 2 versions of this. It's one, and and the not kids one. I'll be honest and say I'll never play the kids version because all these dares sound a little lame. Like, I'm sure that's a hot take, but also the adult ones have spill-proof cards, which is perfect until you read the dares, and these dares are as better as they are worse. I blocked off some of the words, so you'll have to rely on your imagination. I don't want to even repeat what this card says. I have standard. But those standards kind of die off after a few minutes because of Show 'em No Mercy. I like this one. The cards are pretty hefty in their punishments. I like that. However, this is a battle royale. If you get 25 or more cards, you're out of the game. And I'm mixed on this rule. You can either ignore it or deal with it. And shabam. Another good Uno with good cards. And when it comes to the cards, these are by far the most tweaked things. Now we got things like Uno Attack and Uno Block is I don't even know what Uno Block is Shuffle is. That Uno cards can be so much better. Uno Flip and Flex cards, for example, just add small but one. My favorite card in the game is the Custom Wild. Just write whatever the hell you want on them. I love this one because it really is just relying on the creativity of the players. I saw Facebook moms going, oh gee willikers, how mischievous would it be if everyone had to draw 2 cards? That would be so insane! Oh, extra size? I thought you said extra fries! No! I have used this card, and boy oh boy, let me tell you, I've seen some shit with that cards here, like clip your fingernails or draw 6, ruin your diet or draw 15. My personal favorite that I've come up with, every person has to write a paragraph about any subject the player of the card's choice within a minute. Whoever wrote the worst one has to swap their current hand with this. You know, you can do whatever you want. It's great. And again, this can go totally further when you consider the collaborations, because it isn't a board game until you put Dora in it. A lot of the time, Uno collabs are done just because they can be done. Who asked for an Uno game based on Disney's planes, based on Pixar's cars? Apparently there's a market because there's 3 of these guys. Now, not every collab has some unique cards, but a substantial amount of them do. Some even have cards connected to itself. Like the Mario Kart one, for example, has a dice. Blockus has Blockus Shuffle again. That's Blockus. Pirates of the Caribbean, that World's End 2007 edition, has a skull. You can even eat in Uno. The winner gets chocolate. There's an expiration date to this one game of Uno. As a whole, I would say there's 4 special card types, and these connect to the original games as well. There's the enhancers that simply add new ways of adding cards, basically all the ones where the game has like tiny changes, like the Lion King Circle of Life. Everyone has to move 1 card to their left, and there's one in Cars 3 where you pick a player and shuffle their cards and split them evenly with you. I like this Ghostbuster Crossing Streams one. You gotta make everyone draw and play the same colors or draw more. Not much to add there, it's nifty enough. Then we got the vocal cards, basically the same as saying Uno. That's something else, or even nothing at all. The Encanto version has a We Don't Talk card, and that's about what you would expect. You can't talk until you get an Uno. On the opposite end, the Harry Potter edition has a Howler card, where you have to scream every card in your hand.
They have a
and
helmet.
The funnier, the worse you are doing. If you have like 40 cards, I'm so sorry. Next, we got the ha-ha, silly, funny, random ones. They're about what they sound like. Kevin's Famous Chili is a card where you have to clumsily drop your hand and everyone else has to do it, and the last person to do it draws 2. This feels like you could very easily cheat and like get rid of cards. I would not be shocked. There's also non-Parmesan Uno here. This is meant to be exactly what it sounds like. There's no red or blue cards, but there is a veto card that prohibits anyone from being political in any capacity during Uno. That's kind of cute. Also, Left-Hand Edition, and the BTS version where you have to act out a BTS dance number. The fact that being a fan of BTS makes you better at anything kind of upsets me, but then there's Hell. I think Hell cards are the best. Call me a sociopath all you want, but I think the magic behind Uno lies behind making your friends suffer for an extended period, and then utilizing those lovable house rules to amplify the funny funnies. Like that one-time Achievement Hunter had a 37 long game. That's awesome. I want to hold my friends socially hostage, just like, look at them smiles. Maybe I don't even want to play Uno. Maybe I just want to play a game that barely counts as a game of Uno. That's where the superhero editions show up. Basically, it's still Uno, but you have to pick a hero. There's certain benefits and skills each character has, and yes, there is competitive viability in this version of Uno. At that point, you just kind of question if it's even counting as Uno. But I guess that just kind of comes with the game. What can I say? No 2 games are going to be the same. The iterations available have just enough complexity where you can add whatever rules you want, and it genuinely works as an effective little trinket of gunk and nightmares and ruined friendships. If you really want to be that, guy, I guess. I'm so sorry, it's like 3 a.m. recording this. I'm so dehydrated. And here is where I want to tell you all about a very special, unofficial version of Uno I found that I think is worth talking about. That
Lady,
being
can I ask for your help?
Massacre's Mansion. It started up a couple months ago and is still in development. Basically, what this version exists to do is combine every
Fine.
single version of Uno with unique mechanics into one giant soup of nightmares.
Be that
Every
way.
version I have talked about is going to be represented in some capacity, and already this is looking kind of nuts. At this point, it quite literally is just a man-made horror beyond card game comprehension. Going through these videos and seeing what to expect with what we've already seen
What?
has been added to the game is pretty insane. Those stupid superhero ones alone significantly increase the amount of cards we're going to expect. This is Uno Ultimate. It is inevitably nearing, and it is going to decimate the poor people who are going to be new to the game. You're quite literally going to have to pre-game and study the rules before playing, because already at this version, there's about 100 editions represented. And when this game releases, it's going to be called Chemicards. It's going to be like its own thing. This isn't sponsored or anything. I just think like this is cool. You know, I just wanted to throw it out there. Seriously, check these videos out if you want to get an idea. It's going to be hefty, but probably fun. So to Massacre, I hope you're seeing this. I want to recommend the last versions I'm talking about today, namely the special editions on Ubisoft's Online Uno. In my opinion, this is the best Uno, mainly because of accessibility, but Ubisoft has a bunch of their own franchises, each with their unique cards. I won't lie though, the only ones I really cared about were Rayman Edition, which is okay enough, but then there's Rabbids Uno. And Rabbids Uno is funny just because these little hell spawns will pop out all the time. Just there's a card where the next person to draw has to draw an extra 3. There's one where 10 cards are randomly
They
distributed.
have
There's
strength
a
too.
card. And then there's the funny little freak that runs around the table and gives
Oh
everyone
my
10
God.
seconds to play. It also screams at each respective
How
player.
do
This
I
would've been
deal
fine
with this
by
with
myself.
the gear
Now
I
expect
have?
the fully one-for-one recreation of this card in the amalgam. Good luck. Have fun with my sleep paralysis demon. This one may or may not suck. I don't know. You might just skip it. If you do though, that's lame and stupid and uncool. So don't do that. Well, this is taking
Look how many
too long. I'm
deaths
just gonna
I've had.
gamble all this money for double or nothing. Here we go. You actual fool. You really thought I was going to gamble all of that money when I explicitly said 10 minutes ago I don't condone gambling. No, I have influence, and I need to say now, never, ever, ever, ever gamble any money. More often than not, it's going to create more problems than solutions, so don't get stuck in that mindset. Unless you absolutely 100% know for sure that you're going to win the next one, then do it. You win a lot of money.
Let's see how good this armor set is. It makes you attract lightning, which isn't good. Okay, it sucks. Oh, they're fighting each other. Oh, I won somehow in the end. Eventually. Oh, are you fucking kidding me? I don't. I didn't even. I didn't stare at any Enderman. What the fuck got that guy so worked up? Right click to spawn zombie? Why would I want to do that? So, yeah, playing in hardcore would have been a very terrible idea on my part. My death count. You see, this is why I was against going caving. Oh my god, you have so much health. This is hardly fair. Okay then. Caving is a bad idea. I am going to die a lot. And I'm going to hate it. So, I suppose I must look to safer alternatives. At the very least, for getting iron.
down to 64 games by considering a game to be over the moment a fork takes place. Finally, in a highly questionable step that I already pointed out was a little bogus, we assume that the first player plays in the middle square. Now, I think different people might draw the line at different places in this progression. Personally, I think it's pretty uncontroversial to assume that players will play winning moves and block the other player's winning moves. But it was the next assumption that really got some of you up in arms in the comments. Remember this? In the original video, I argued that a competent player would never make one of these moves, but instead would make one of these moves so as to set up 3 in a row in the following turn. Well, I'm sorry to say that Drake misled you. It turns out that there are some situations where it might make sense to play a move that doesn't immediately set you up for 3 in a row, because it might set you up for work on a future turn. In fact, countless comments mentioned this one situation in which X starts in the corner and O responds with the center. Now, Drake would
I
have
was
us
hoping
play
I
one
could
of
test
these
this
4
out on some
locations,
enemies.
but many of you felt that the best move is actually the opposite corner. Why? Well, because of the symmetry of the board, there are really only 2 responses that O can make here, the edge or the corner. And if O falls into the trap of playing in one of the attractive-looking corner spots, they're toast, because X can play in the opposite corner and create a fork. Anyway, all of this strategizing does make you wonder, what exactly is the optimal play in tic-tac-toe? Is there such a thing as a perfect player? Well, it turns out that tic-tac-toe is what's known as a solved game. The state of possible games is small enough that we can actually consider every possible ramification of every possible move, and in that sense, play perfectly. Perhaps you've seen one of these confusing-looking diagrams showing the optimal play for each player. I first encountered this kind of diagram as an XKCD cartoon, although this particular one came from Wikipedia.
Well, that's nice.
And I think this diagram was created using something called a Minimax algorithm. Without going into too much detail, the Minimax algorithm basically backtracks from the end of the game to figure out the projected value of different moves. So let's say that a win for X is a score of 10, a win for O is a score of -10, and a tie is a score of 0. X is trying to maximize the projected score, and O is trying to minimize that score. In a game as simple as tic-tac-toe, both players can consider every possible ramification of every move, and select the one that leads to the best score. Here's the thing though, what's deceptive about these optimal play diagrams is that they make it sound like there's only one optimal path, one perfect choice for every move. But actually, there are often several equally optimal moves in a given situation. For instance, consider this situation
I could try going
where
back
X is
here
turned to play.
and
If
just
X goes in the
mining and
center,
see
they
how
create
many
a fork and win.
more
If they go in
surface
the lower
irons I
left
can
corner,
dig
they
out.
also create a fork and win. If X goes in the middle top, O will go in the center, create a
I
fork
don't know.
and win. If X goes in either of the remaining spots, a draw is inevitable. A Minimax algorithm therefore assigns these scores to the different choices. The optimal play is either center or corner, but neither is inherently better. There isn't one right move. Anyway, I built a Minimax tic-tac-toe player for this video, and it actually turns out that, assuming 2 players with perfect skill, perfect visions into the future ramifications of any move, there are 336 different games of tic-tac-toe, and they are all draws. In particular, with perfect players, it actually doesn't matter what X's first move is. Center, corner, edge. Against a perfect player, there's no way to force a win, and you can always ensure a draw. Now, you might have noticed a crucial caveat there. We are assuming 2 players with perfect skill, and I have more to say about that. But first, let's make some cool diagrams. See, there's a problem with the first diagram I showed you, which is that all it shows is the square someone played on a given move, but it doesn't really show you the state of the board. Like, look at these 2 games. The diagram makes it look like they intersect and branch off, but actually they're totally different games. The only similarity is that X plays in the lower right corner on the 5th move. To really understand all the branching possibilities of a tic-tac-toe game, we need to change our y-axis to represent the state of the whole board. And once again, we'll take advantage of symmetry to reduce the number of states. So to be concrete about it, at the beginning there is one possible state of the board, empty. After X's first move, there are 3 possible states of the board depending on whether they play corner, edge, or center. All other possible states are just symmetrical copies. After O plays the second move, there are now 12 possible states of the board. And then on X's next move, there are 38 possible states of the board. Remember, at each stage, I'm lumping together symmetric versions of the same board state. And interestingly, although the number of states of the board goes up a lot at first, it reduces towards the end as the board fills up. So if we go back to those 2 games we were just looking at and plot them using board state on the y-axis, we can now see that the games are completely different from one another. On On the other hand, we can see that these two games, which feature a completely different sequence of moves, share a common state on the fifth move.
I don't think I have enough
Going
bones.
back to our perfect players, we can now visualize the whole web of tie games in a really satisfying way. Let's take a listen to a few of them. Cool, huh? Let's get back to strategy. So far we've talked about the concept of perfect strategy, and I mentioned that there's this assumption that you're playing a
Surface
perfect
caves
player
like
against
these
another
should be
perfect
safe.
player. But the thing is, the reason so many people like the corner-center-corner opening is that in reality, you don't play against perfect opponents. Against a perfect opponent is just one way of reaching the inevitable draw. Against an imperfect opponent, though, there's a decent chance that they'll fall into the trap of playing one of the remaining corners. So, in trying to count the possible tic-tac-toe games, how can we account for both the simple heuristic play from my previous video, in which players just try to get 2 in a row when they can, and the more calculated, forward-thinking play of an ideal player? Well, simple. We just allow both styles of play. And if we do that, we end up with 398 different games of tic-tac-toe, which we can represent in this beautiful decision tree. I've colored the final states where X wins in orange, the final states where O wins in green, and the tie games in gray. So is that it? Are there 398 games of tic-tac-toe? Did I deceptively
much
make
iron
this
here,
video
it
for
seems.
clickbait? Well, maybe a little, but here's the thing. Looking at this diagram, there are many cases where, having reached a certain move, the outcome is now predetermined. From here, for instance, there are several different ways in which we can get to a draw. But unless someone fails to block an obviously winning move, it's going to be a draw. Similarly, from here, unless X chooses a really stupid move, there's no way for them to lose. So I think it's actually pretty reasonable to prune back this tree and end the games when the outcome is inevitable. And when you do that, you arrive back at the much more modest number of 113 different games. To me, this is the space of possible games that you truly might arrive at in real-world tic-tac-toe combat. And check it out, here's the corner-center-corner opening we keep talking about, and it has 2 possible next moves. The corner, which leads inevitably to X winning, or the edge, which leads inevitably to a draw. Oh, and by the way, we can go back to the diagram representing perfect players and do the same thing. It turns out that with perfect players, the one true game of tic-tac-toe is to sit down, look each other in the eyes, shake hands, and call it a draw. See, it wasn't clickbait. By the way, a couple of loose ends I want to address. First, the code. Some people requested to look at my code for the last video, and it was a bit of a mess, but I cleaned it up for this video, so see the description for the link. Second, based on my research for this video, I'm no longer 100% convinced that the corner is objectively the best first move. I think generally the evidence people give for this comes from those optimal
Seems
move
they're hostile
diagrams,
by
but
default.
these diagrams just give the first available optimal move. I am convinced that the corner-center-corner sequence is a pretty shrewd opening strategy for X. But is it the only strategy like this? Have any of you found other clever strategies that trick your opponents into making a mistake? Next, some people pointed out in my last video that all of the games look the same. It turns out that our fancy new diagram can clarify this a little. If we load those 14 games, we can see
They
that
have
all the tie
80
games
health
end
again.
up at the same board state, even though they took different paths. If we widen this out to the larger set of games that we consider in this video,
There's just
there
a
are
lot of
actually
new
3
mobs
different tied boards that you can arrive at.
that you
said,
can
as
really
this
only
video
deal
shows,
with
they clearly did some
powerful
mistakes, or at least oversights.
Diamond
in the first
here
video.
already.
And you know, that's the thing about making YouTube videos. Once in a while, it blows up and gets hundreds of thousands, or in this case, millions of views. But most of the time, they don't. My natural inclination is always to track down every last detail, make a video perfect. But sometimes that's led me to put months of work into videos that just don't get picked up by the algorithm for whatever reason. So anyway, if you want to support my natural instinct to go a little bananas with the analysis, visuals, and sonifications, consider subscribing to my Patreon. There's some pretty fun bonus material there too. And for this video, I'm planning to do a live walkthrough of my code, if that's something that interests you. Finally, it's come to my attention that some people left the last video with the impression that I don't have a lot of respect for tic-tac-toe.
Oh, she's coming for me.
It's a fucking stupid game. Funnily enough, the whole idea for these videos actually came from teaching my 3-year-old son to play tic-tac-toe. He loved it, and because he loved it, I love it too. It's clearly a game that has persisted for a reason, because it represents a kind of sweet spot in terms of complexity. And paradoxically, it's this
She's
perfect
definitely
level
hostile.
of complexity that has allowed the kind of analysis I've been doing here. And also, as several commenters pointed out, its simplicity makes it an amazing tool for teaching the cognitive and social aspects of competitive gameplay. So, I take back my flip comment. It's not a stupid game. It's still hella unfair, though.
Oh, I completely forgot about this diamond axe.
Hey, man, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but turns out the golden age of TTRPGs is dead. We are watching a bright time in the TTRPG industry pass away before our very eyes. No, I really wouldn't say so, but that is the big story on Twitter last week. Like, this is old news. This is a hot take that I think has already been cooled down. But I was hearing more about this in Mike Shea, aka Sly Flourish's latest weekly talk show episode, and it really apparently has some like glaring factual errors, but also some interesting talking points. So I thought it would be worth reading through and sharing this with you. So let's just jump in. And by the way, I'm Bob. This is where we learn and have more fun playing RPGs together. And this comes from Ben Riggs, who I don't know a lot about, but I know he's written at least one pretty cool book because I had just happened to see a review about it. So that was a really interesting video. I will link that down in the description while we continue reading this thread. So from the beginning, Golden Age of TTRPGs is dead, bright time passing before our eyes, etc., etc. Around the start of the 2010s, we saw the dawn of a new golden age of tabletop role-playing games. Since then, huge numbers of new players found the hobby thanks to Stranger Things and actual plays like Critical Role. So that's like the 2015, 2016 timeline there. And these new fans discovered a vibrant and thrumming TTRPG industry. There was the D20 Fantasy family of games, dominated by D&D 5e, mentions a bunch of other publishers and systems here. This influx of gamers created a rising tide that lifted all boats, and I definitely agree with that. Novice gamers started out playing D&D 5e, yes, but went on to discover other great games. Because of the increasing number of gamers, even strange, freaky, or weird TTRPG ideas could find an audience. As a passionate supporter of Skate Wizards RPG, I fully agree. But recent developments made it clear that this radiant golden age is ending as surely as the steam engine ended the age of the sail, or the hobbits bearing a ring ended the third age of Middle. The doom of our time approaches. Just so we're clear on like the tone of this Twitter thread, in the wake of the open gaming license scandal of this past winter, as in the beginning of 2023, a number of companies have successfully launched new TTRPGs intended to move them past the possibility of Wizards of the Coast ever affecting their businesses ever again. True, some of these games gross millions in crowdfunding campaigns, all of them positively reviewed, I guess, and some, I would put myself in this category, cite the success of these games, which are intended to replace, okay, I wouldn't say they're intended to replace 5e like the OGO, necessarily. I guess things like Tales of the Valiant literally meant to replace D&D 5e, but supporting 5e in the same way. Anyway, as signs of the continued health and growth of the TTRPG industry. That's what I was agreeing with there. My mind kind of jumped to that last line. I think the success of many new games
are signs of the continued growth of the TTRPG industry, but apparently they're not. Rather, they are signs that the industry has peaked and may be about to enter a decline. Why? After the open gaming license crisis of 2023, I became pessimistic, so immediately jumping into opinions on why. That's fine. I guess this whole thing is an opinion, but this doesn't indicate actual signs. Pessimistic about the damage the attempt to kill the OGL had done to our hobby. Others told me that the result of the crisis would be blooming of 1,000 flowers. Maybe every single one of those new TTRPGs is going to be amazing. Maybe every one will be so fun and so captivating that lawns will go unmowed, pets unfed, and diapers unchanged because we are all so busy playing one of those games. The problem is that the TTRPG business is devilishly difficult. Only very rarely the creation of a phenomenal game actually leads to financial success. Okay, sure, this makes sense. And the death of the OGL and the creation of these games has fundamentally changed the industry in such a way that it will be harder for those companies to make money in the future. The difficult business is about to become more difficult. And I think the premise here has some merit, but it's assuming a line of thinking I've seen in other aspects of the TTRPG community, where it's people assume the pie is only this big. And so if we break it into all these slices, that's less and less for everybody. So we're under the assumption that the community cannot grow anymore. That by creating all these new games, even if they're really awesome, all it will do is fracture the community. And I think that's fundamentally wrong. Things can grow more, especially as new games draw in new communities of people who might not have played D&D, but maybe they'll try MCDM or Tales of the Valiant or the Avatar RPG or the Stormlight RPG coming out next year. I'm getting way off track, we'll jump back in. You could use the work of all these companies at your table. This made it easier for companies to share customers. Yeah, again. Critical Role has dropped 5e like a dead cockroach. Just in case you're not aware, Critical Role's main show, the one they're known for, with hundreds of thousands of people watching, 500,000 plus people, I think, watching every single video, that's 5e. It's not Daggerheart, it's not Candela Obscura. It has not been dropped like a cockroach. And of course, there's the Rising Godzilla, that is 6th edition D&D, which scientists say will attack our shores in spring of 2024. So far, no hint of an OGL for whatever that game will be. But we've been promised, also made a video about this, that the SRD will be updated to include the new material. Technically no sign of it yet, because they said it wouldn't come until after the game is published. So correct, but with the wrong implication. Okay, and this is where he summarizes the point that I thought we arrived at a lot earlier, but these new games are a shattering of that community. And like I said earlier, I disagree. And then it looks like he's really drilling down on that point even further. And then all this has happened before. So now pulling on some of his expertise, I think, in having written that book about the downfall of TSR. Okay, several more tweets about the fracturing. Furthermore, what will happen to the YouTube channel that is the foundation of MCDM's success? Matt Coble is a master communicator, and he was a major evangelist for D&D in his channel's heyday. But this is also, I almost have to take this a little personal, because it's saying, what would we do without Matthew Colville's one YouTube channel? Because there are no other YouTube channels about role-playing games, surely. But I agree, Matt Colville is passionate, intelligent, and inspiring. But I feel like even Matt Colville wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if he would put his channel on the pedestal that this guy's putting his channel on. Not to mention that Critical Role, a huge reason for the recent surge in D&D popularity, is likewise stopping their support for D&D. This one's factually incorrect. Have not stopped their support for D&D. Saying they're asking their 2.1 million YouTube subscribers to start playing one of their other two new games instead. Never, ever, ever has anyone from Critical Role said to stop playing D&D and to play either of their games instead. Not true. And even if it were true, this is assuming that all 2.1 million subscribers of Critical Role actually play D&D. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true by a wide margin. Okay, what the future might look like. And if I'm right, this is how the golden age of GTRPGs dies. Things follow naturally from these events. Here are my predictions and prophecies that I may be held accountable for. My reactions is all in there. So 6th edition will not do as well as 5e. Not a bold claim at all. Of course it won't do as well as 5e. Again, it is just an update of 5e, but 5e also practically coincided with the birth and momentous leftist mainstream popularity of Stranger Things, we're not going to get another Stranger Things. Like, even if the hot new season of Stranger Things came out the same month as the new Player's Handbook, it's not going to do the same as that new popularity of Stranger Things with the new popularity of 5e all at the same time. No MCDM RPG crowdfunding campaign will ever do better than its initial campaign to fund its TTRPG. Also, of course, a core rulebook is always the best-selling book of any RPG. And yes, I would love to be proven wrong. It would be so cool if, when they eventually publish like that big bestiary or something for MCDM RPG, it blows their original book out of it. Like, that would be an amazing success. But claiming that that won't happen is not like a earth-shattering statement. Kobold Press's post-OGL game, Tales of the Valiant, has been criticized for being too similar to 5e. For Kobold Press, I see two futures. Perhaps they will slowly bleed fans in the same way MCDM will. But if D&D 6th edition is too different and people don't really want to move on from 5e, will just position themselves to be the next Paizo and Tales of the Valiant next Pathfinder. I feel like these are actually the same future for
Kobold Press and Tales of the Valiant.
Their core book will be the most popular thing. And for people who want to move on from official D&D products because of the many scandals that have happened over the course of this year, they can go to Tales of the Valiant and play pretty much the same game, but with none of that baggage. That's cool. It's a good thing. This is an interesting. The frequency. $1 million TTRPG Kickstarter decrease. Attendance at major gaming conventions will plateau. So, for the second point, no idea about conventions, but these $1 million Kickstarter. So I'd say this one is the main one so far that I'm really unsure about. This one's just sad. TTRPGs will become less interesting, less exciting, less creative. Despite all the new systems, it will also grow less diverse. Yeah, now I feel like this is really trying to have it both ways. Is it fractured and becoming more diverse, or becoming less diverse? I feel like this is unaffected as well, because people making interesting, exciting, and creative games didn't care whatever the mainstream thing was in the first place. So they're just going to keep doing that. What could change this grim future? I suppose a group of publishers coalescing around a single system. This was my thought when the OGL thing happened. I was like, whoa, what if all the big 5e publishers came together and made their own new system? But some people quickly talked me down from that point. I definitely don't think we need it. What the heck? Or something truly inconceivable, like giving 6th edition D&D and OGL, or putting the rules in Creative Commons. So again, we've been promised that these 6th edition, aka the updated 5e rules, will be in Creative Commons. So the idea that that's being pointed out as truly inconceivable does, to me, point out a major blind spot. And that's really it. So I think I've already made my take on it clear. I think the community as a whole is still going to continue to grow, even if it grows slowly. I think things like the Stormlight RPG are about to draw in 25 to 50,000 new people buying their first RPG next year, because that's an immensely popular book series. If you don't know it, check out Stormlight Archives. And sure, those ones are games tied to existing major IPs, but who's to say that won't continue to happen? That's pretty much what Stranger Things just did for D&D. It just so happened to be an existing game. So yes, I think there's plenty of room for tabletop role-playing games as a whole to continue growing in the mainstream, growing the whole pie. But let me know in the comments what you think about all this. I'd love to hear it. And hey, check out one of these videos on your screen. Consider subscribing. Definitely like this video if you enjoyed this little escapade. And even consider joining Patreon to directly support what I do. I am apparently one of the last RPG YouTube channels on the platform. So, man, no, but actually that is the best way to help me out if you'd like to. So, thank you for your support, and keep building.
I like this song. I've never heard it played before. The heck? Look at you go, you're so fast. You're gonna die just as fast. This should reduce the amount of shit that keeps falling underwater. And it maintains the water log. I do miss having my bags. Okay. I remember now. I wanted to make another. Shit. I lost my flint and steel. And shears. The shears are more important. What I have should be more than enough, though. With the wool, I mean. Nice. Teka.
Not too long ago, I asked you guys for Cuphead video ideas. And what I realized was some of you massively overrate my skill, and some of you just want to hurt me. But after giving it some thought, I decided to not listen to any of you. Because, Jesus, Pillard, who do you think I am? Who do you think I am? The law? What if I gave you this? What if I gave you this? This? I can work with. I decided I was gonna 300% Cuphead without dying, not even once. Oh, that is great. That is just splendid. If I do die, I instantly delete the save. If you do enjoy this video, please let me know by subscribing and leaving a like. The channel just passed 1,000 subscribers. Personally, I would like more than that. Jesus. To get 300% in Cuphead, it requires you to beat every boss on expert difficulty, and to unlock expert mode on every boss, you need to beat the game on regular mode. So that's where I started. In my first run, I beat a couple of bosses before going to the Mausoleum to unlock Miss Chalice. Victory! What? Victory! Take me to move it. Take me to get the cookie. Now I am ready to play the game. Upon my return from Aisle 4, I was ready to really dive headfirst into the first run and gun to get the challenge underway. This one guy won't stop. They're following me! It's like a posse! Oh, hell nah. Shit. It's alright. A toast to new beginnings. For attempt number 2, I decided to switch up my strategy and headed straight to the second run and gun treetop truck, where I clocked in another successful run. And another one. Made it 2% of the way through that one. Almost had it. My fourth attempt went about as expected. What is wrong with me? I need help, psychiatric care. Finally, on my fifth attempt, I actually beat the level. Is that 5% out of 300? Also on the fifth attempt, I'm an idiot. It's not fun anymore. I'm already having it. It's not fun. It's not funny or fun anymore. There's that one guy, right, that played every Souls game in a row without getting hit one time. Then he hugs his wife, and if I did this, it wouldn't be nearly as impressive, and I would not have a wife to hug afterwards. So that kind of just sours this whole thing a little bit. On attempt 6, I got past the running guns finally, and built a bit of steam, making it all the way through Aisle 1 and into Aisle 2. And I used this momentum to get through Beppy.
What is up with this
That's just Bobo.
freaking lag? I just wanted to make...
I wrote Bobo down in the script. Let me try that again. I used this momentum to get through Beppy, Jimmy, Bobo, Waldo, and Pim. Who the hell is... Whoa! I am gross! And after flying through the running guns, I was on to Aisle 3 without a scratch on my little cup's head. As you'd expect from a gamer of my caliber, I continued to take care of business. I was wiping my buttocks with these guys. With they one-ply selves. Just before I could enter hell, though, I had to take on the running guns. Shoot. Oh my god. Toast to new beginnings. Only 1 hour after that, I found myself in the same place, and just like that, I had my longest run